About a week ago, I published a video titled The Record: What Documented Actions Show About the Ramapo Fear Narrative. In it, I showed a fraction of public records that contradict a popular notion that fear is what has caused Ramapo Mountains Lenape leadership to remain quiet for years in regards to assisting me in the pursuit of justice for their enrolled tribal member, Afro-Indigenous land defender, and elected war chief Muriyd Williams. Today I want to briefly address the two screenshot messages that appear in the public record regarding the death of my son, Two Clouds. For nearly 3 years after his dead body was found on Ramapo religious ground on July 6, 2022, no tribal leadership contacted me to discuss any investigation into what happened to him. Not once. Then suddenly, in the spring of 2025, almost 3 years later, two messages appeared. The first came from former Chief Dwaine Perry. In that message, he told me that they had a strong lead and that he was heading to the prosecutor's office. This was the first time in nearly 3 years that Mr. Perry had ever suggested to me that there might be something to investigate. But this raises obvious questions. Because from the very beginning, the very afternoon my son's body had been found, and very close to the time it had been removed, Mr. Perry had publicly promoted a completely different story. He told people, including a longtime friend of mine, that my son had fallen out of his canoe and drowned because he was drunk. Others were told that my son had suffered a heart attack, falling out of his canoe and drowned. That was very interesting because no forensic examination had yet been done. When it had been completed, neither claim was supported by the scientific evidence. In fact, the day after my son's body was found, Mr. Perry sent a letter to the medical examiner, excluding the police department, listing multiple speculative causes of death, including a heart attack and possible foul play, while also falsely stating that I supported a full forensic investigation. That statement was untrue, as I had not spoken to him at all, and would not have given anyone such authority over my son's body. And yet, for nearly 3 years, Mr. Perry maintained those narratives. So when he suddenly contacted me in May of 2025, claiming that there was now a strong lead, the obvious question becomes, where did this lead come from? A lead implies that someone has been investigating. But if there had been an investigation, law enforcement or prosecutors would already have been involved. Instead, the first time I ever heard the word lead was when the former chief was reportedly being forced out of his position. That timing raises serious concerns. The second message involves current Chief Vincent Mann. Again, for nearly 3 years, Chief Mann never contacted me about any investigation until my son's death. Yet, according to a message relayed to me from a third party sanctioned by the chief and who had been in attendance at a tribal meeting, Chief Mann reportedly stated that what happened to my son should have been investigated years ago. He also reportedly told members that my son informed him of certain things before his death. If that is true, it raises another very serious question. Why was none of that ever shared with me? For 3 years, I have been publicly seeking answers. I have written articles. I have produced hundreds of videos. I have asked repeatedly for help in pursuing the truth about my son's death. Chief Mann has been aware of this the entire time, yet he never once reached out to say, "Here's what your son told me." Not once. So when I hear statements now suggesting that this should have been investigated years ago, the question becomes very simple. Why wasn't it? Because the reality is that nothing prevented tribal leadership from supporting an investigation. Nothing prevented them from sharing information. Nothing prevented them from standing beside the family of a land defender whose death remains unexplained. It is also important to understand that Vincent Mann was not just another tribal member. He was my son's Turtle Clan chief. In traditional clan structures, a clan chief has a responsibility to protect and advocate for members of that clan. And this is why documentation matters. The public record tells a very different story than the narrative that people sometimes repeat. The idea that leadership did nothing because they were afraid. But afraid of what? If someone truly believed that a land defender had been harmed, going to law enforcement or prosecutors would not create danger. It would create protection and accountability. So if fear played any role in the silence that followed my son's death, it raises a different question. What exactly were people afraid might come to light if a real investigation took place? Fear does not explain 3 years of silence. Fear does not explain shifting explanations about how my son died. Fear does not explain why information that could have helped was never shared. During those same 3 years, while no leadership stepped forward to support an investigation, a different narrative quietly circulated. That I was simply grieving, that I was being emotional, that I was causing trouble, that I was altogether lying. But documentation tells a different story. From the beginning, my concerns were based on evidence, inconsistencies, and unanswered questions. What the record shows is something else entirely, and that is why I continue to document these facts. Because my son's life mattered. His work mattered. His legacy matters. And the truth about what happened to him matters. History is not written by silence. It is written by documentation. And I will continue to document the truth about my son, Muriyd, 2 Clouds, Williams.